Join us in welcoming Medhavi Modi, author of I Am Beautiful, Is a Child's Life a Crime? From Survive to Live to Thrive. Medhavi is not just fighting for her right to survive and thrive, but for the right to live for all IVF surrogacy-born children. She realized that the purpose of her life is overcoming her own individual challenges. It's not about disagreement with others, fighting with others, close family and friends, or distant folk in perceived enemy lands. Medhavi believes that we are all different. We have different life experiences, and so it's expected that individual challenges to overcome will also be different. That's fine. What unites us is we all are overcoming our own challenges the best we can. Can we do this while having mutual respect for other humans and their humanity? The issues she is covering are to the left of the left and to the right of the right, and everything in between. Her grandmother says, "Follow your heart." Is that wrong? The love of her family has helped her to overcome adversity. It's in her DNA. Without further ado, Medhavi Modi.
Um, Thank you for this amazing opportunity for making me able to share something I'm passionate about. So let's get into it. Let's get right into it. The question right now the question in front of you is the first question I asked myself when my dad told me about my life is a child's life a crime? For everyone in this room, the answer is definitely no, because the child is innocent. But it wasn't the case with me. I was denied my rights as a child and labeled as stateless. So before we go into that, let's look over what we're going to look over today. Today we're going to look at the 4-way test, and I'm going to share a little bit about my life, then share statelessness, then share the challenges faced by people that infertility, then hopefully, then hopefully victims. However, if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to ask them, or we can save them for later. Now, I'm sure everyone over here is familiar with the 4-way test. Rotarians always believe their actions whenever they do something, they always ask themselves, is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? They also ask if it builds goodwill and better friendships. And lastly, they think about if it's beneficial to all concerned. I want everyone in this room to look at the presentation, as I walk through the presentation, to look at these 4 questions and ask themselves that what has happened, is it the truth, is it fair, did it build goodwill and better friendships, and was it beneficial to all concerned? So, starting out with my life. After 6 attempts, I was finally born and labeled as stateless. From there, I've been able to survive and live, and I look forward to thriving. But to summarize my life, I would say, go back to 1809. A black girl walks to the court and asks, "I don't want to be a slave anymore, I want freedom." The judge says, "I'm sorry, that's the law, that's what you get." Today, that would never happen. A judge would not be able to say that to anyone in the world, that slavery is true, slavery is good. Just like that, going back to 2009 now, when I was born, I go into court asking for my freedom, asking for my right, and I'm denied. Why? Because the judge says it's not the law. However, it will not stand in the nick of time, and I hope one day everyone who's learned to IVF surrogacy or faces statelessness any way in their life is able to fight this. I understand this is a difficult topic, but I also understand that it's important to talk about these topics because if you don't, and if you continue avoiding them, you can never find a real solution. Statelessness. What is statelessness? As per UNHCR, stateless is a person who is considered as a national is not considered a national by any state under the operation of this law. Basically, stateless is a fancy term used for people who have no freedom. They have no rights. They aren't able to receive any basic rights such as healthcare, education, even just freedom in general. There are many different ways a person can be stateless. First is being legally phased out or war displacement, maybe false documentation or undocumented. There are also other reasons, but There is a very fractional amount in which is caused by IVF surrogacy, which is my circumstance. And by my estimate, I would say there are around 23 million people in US alone who are stateless due to one of these factors. But as a stateless child, my goal is not to focus on the factors that cause these problems. My goal is to focus on the solution. My goal is to make sure that no child is ever labeled stateless, as it's a very bad situation to be in, and I would wish that upon anyone. So now, looking into how a child can become stateless, there are 8 different ways. The first way where there is a biological father, biological mother's egg, and biological mother's womb, which can also be known, which is similar to a natural born child. The last one, number 8, is where there is an anonymous sperm donor, anonymous egg donor, and anonymous surrogate. This is similar to an adoption. The law does not deal with this. However, when it comes to the numbers between 2 and 7, there is a gray area, as it causes confusion since the law is not able to understand what to do with these problems, since they need a biological mother to issue a birth certificate. And since there is no biological mother, the law decides to not address this problem and just cause more problems. And as a result, the victim is an innocent child, which leaves them being stateless, not having any rights. The first 2 are something, number 2 and 3 are something maybe a intersex or infertile couple would go through. And number 4 could be a gay couple or an intersex couple as well. The number 5, 6, 7 could be a lesbian couple or an intersex couple. So now looking at the challenges faced by infertility people, there are many. There are medical challenges, financial challenges, and legal challenges. People go through, as an infertile couple, they go through a lot of problems. And finally, as a solution when the child is born, there are 2 ways to deal with it. The first way is to give the child what it needs, a birth certificate, a passport, give her the right to live. However, the other thing to do could be to deny this, to name the child as illegal, a criminal, just because it's born. However, the child is the solution to the problem. The child is not really the cause of the problem. By labeling the child a criminal, you can't just label the child a criminal because it doesn't fit the status quo, since the child helps solve the infertility issues faced by all these people. By labeling it illegal makes it insensitive to these people who deal with this infertility all throughout their lives. So finally, looking at my plea. As the famous poem says by Martin Moore he wrote in World War II, where he says that when people came for everyone around me, he didn't know anything. When people came for him, there was no one to say anything for him. There are 1 out of 6 people in America who are infertile. So even if it's not you who's affected by infertility, you will know someone definitely who's affected by infertility. So my plea is for you to take action, against these problems and help people who are infertile and help resolve statelessness. Because even if it doesn't affect you, it does affect someone around you. And please don't wait for it to come towards you. These are a few ways you can help. You can buy the book, you can sign the online petition, or you can go to GoFund. Are there any questions?
Yes, go ahead and start off. How do you feel being stateless?
At this point, very grateful to my father. I'm no longer stateless because of him fighting for me. But I would say when I was stateless, I didn't really know what it meant. So personally, I would say nothing. But at this point, when I learned about it, I realized like how bad of a situation that is for someone who does realize what they are in. It would be like as a child if someone were to be blind and they don't know what vision is, right? But once you get your eyesight back, you realize what you're missing out on, and then once you realize that, you can never go back to the place where you didn't realize you were blind. I would say.
So do you talk to your friends about this?
I try not to talk to everyone about it just because I feel like in a way I like recognize myself because I'm stateless and like, oh, I'm different or everything. But with my close friends, I do try to talk about it, and I always try to be mindful, even when making jokes, to not be offensive to any of these topics at all, and to keep my jokes funny and not offensive at all. And yeah, I do enjoy talking to my friends about it sometimes, but yeah, I just talk to my friends. I don't talk to everyone about it because I just don't want to draw extra attention.
Great presentation. So, is there a legal remedy that can be pursued, or do you anticipate some legal group taking this on, or is it really an individual one by one kind of thing?
So statelessness is like, as I said before, can be caused by many factors. And so I think the best way to remedy this problem is to create like strong laws and enforce them properly. Because if you talk about like undocumented immigrants or false documentation or maybe phased out, the people are phased out, which means they don't really have an identity anymore. So it's not identity per se, maybe because maybe they immigrated to the U.S. when they were a child, and now they have been phased out, or maybe their documentation was false, and once it's caught, they don't have, they have to let go of their citizenship and move back to the country they're from. However, maybe they have already lost that citizenship, which means that they don't really have a place to go and don't really have a citizenship of a country, and therefore they won't have any rights of like basic rights like freedom or like even education, healthcare. So there's not like a specific person to go to remedy this. It's just mainly the government that has to create these laws and enforce them. So this doesn't keep on happening because it is a very sad situation to be in.
So you wrote a book on this, right? It's a Child's Life of Crime. How did it feel writing that book?
I would say it was like an emotional roller coaster in a way because sometimes it's like, oh my god, like this is my life, and then it's once you realize it, it does make you sad because like there's so much stuff happening in like one person's life, and then I'm thinking about it and I'm like this like all of this has happened to me or happened to my family members because of infertility and statelessness and just loss of freedom in general. But I would say I felt mostly happy and proud that I've been able to overcome this problem. But at the same time, I have felt pretty like sad maybe, or just maybe just sad because of how many people go through this and me being the only one of the only people who can speak up for this problem.
So we have a comment from Liz Sapphire that says, I had no idea that people could be stateless. Very scary that this category exists. Thank you for sharing with us. Really appreciate learning more.
Thank you so much for listening and thank you for your comment.
All right, do you have any more questions from the chat? And Cheryl has one more question. So given what you've gone through, it sounds like you're already doing some advocacy, but do you see yourself becoming a bigger advocate in this area as you go to college or take a job?
Definitely as I grow and understand more about this concept, I definitely want to take like a bigger step, maybe like joining like this Rotary Club or some way to find just spread awareness of this because I think the best way to remedy this problem is to spread awareness so people know about this problem because if you don't know you can't solve something. So more people know, maybe people talk about it more often and maybe this leads to the government finally listening and changing the laws.
What's the percentage of people that are stateless? Like, do you know like what that minority is?
I mean, it's kind of hard to take an estimate because most of the people don't want to share that since it's a very personal and kind of, it might put their safety at risk as well. But I would say there is a good amount of people who are facing statelessness in this world.
So are there countries that do a better job at welcoming and helping stateless individuals lose that identity?
I'm not sure if there's a specific country or certain countries that help with this, but I mean, U.S. personally, I believe is like a pretty powerful country because they do have a good economy and everything, and a good, a well-known country in general. And they really haven't helped with this. Like, my dad had to fight for this. He didn't get this on the first day. As soon as he went to court, like, give me a birth certificate and a passport, he had to fight for this. So I would say if like U.S. as a country, which is a well-known country who supports all this stuff, like I would say supports LGBTQ, is inclusive, DEI, all of that stuff. But then even those countries who say that they support this are unable to help stateless children. So I'm not sure if there is a country that can actually who does what they say they do.
And just to sort of add to the questions that have been raised so far, do you think it's possible to sort of put together a registry or put together an actual database of everyone that this impacts and actually organize nationwide, at least in the U.S., or maybe just in California, and actually move things forward that way? Is that something that would be something that maybe you would take on, or your dad would take on to sort of make this happen?
To that point, that's why we have the petition. So yes, definitely the vision is to have a law someday. We just don't control the timeline when change arrives. But that's why we have the petition. So the petition is basically that's our way of helpless people asking for help. And it's government, especially democracy, they're all about numbers. So it could be the biggest problem in the world, but if it's only affecting a minority, they don't care. We need the numbers, so definitely sign the petition. And changing laws takes time and effort. It's just being in business. I understand that much. It's just being good for the humanity. Unfortunately, you would think it's good enough, but it's not.
What is the GoFundMe for?
I think that too. So, as I said, changing laws takes time, effort, and resources, including money. So, canvassing to elected officials, canvassing to allies to help us get to elected officials, especially now, it's all about who you know to get to the power of people, the folks in the decision-making seat. So that's what the GoFundMe would be for, is to get access to power, specifically decision-making power, so you can get decisions.
I was going to say, very, very brave of you to talk about this, because I know it's, something that not everybody knows about and could be seen as, as challenging to some people to understand this, right? You did a really good job of wrapping your arms around talking about it in a way that made it very understandable. So thank you for that. And I really admire your dad. I mean, the first time he told me this story, we were meeting for coffee. I don't know if you heard this story. We were meeting for a half-hour coffee, turned into like a 4-hour conversation. I basically took my phone and put it upside down and ignored my wife. She's being very popular at home, but it was like I needed to hear this story. Yeah. And it touched me, and I'm glad that you folks are out there talking about this. So thanks to both of you.
Thank you for listening to the story.
And just so you can get it on audio, where can you get your book?
You can buy it on Amazon, or you can buy it over here for $10. Up to you.
And you'll sign it if you want.
Of course, I will.
I just have, maybe this is too much of a question for right now, but how did it occur that you are now not stateless?
So basically, my dad had to fight for it. He had to go to court. He had to talk to them. He had to explain to them. And I would say, like, usually, when you're born, you sign a, like, 1 or 2 page paper, whatever, write the name, get the birth certificate, you sign, you get your passport. For me, because I was an IVF surrogacy born child, I didn't have, like, the egg donor who's my biological mother is there, right? But is anonymous. So my dad is legally, he cannot know who the person is. So when he goes to sign the birth certificate, they didn't let him sign it because there is no mother. The law didn't know how to deal with something like that because it's such a new topic. So he had to fight for this and explain to people, and I guess fighting through all of this and explaining to people between US and India, he was able to remove me from the state of statelessness.
Just to expand on that, to be clear, just imagine a time prior to 2015 when the Supreme Court of the United States passed the same-sex marriage law. So, if a person was gay or lesbian and they got married, they could not legally get a marriage certificate. Exact same thing. A child of a gay or of a LGBTQ person cannot get a birth certificate because that marriage never exists on law. The child does exist physically, just not on paper. So the laws do not recognize that, which means no birth certificate. So what is statelessness? You don't have legal identity, which is what? A birth certificate, or your driver's license, your passport. So they would not issue that. If I had the authority to issue a birth certificate for my child, I would do it in a minute, in a second. The government won't. They have the authority. I don't. So that's how she's out, because times have changed. We're moving forward. At least we got to, but that's a different story.
Okay, do we have any questions? All right, let's call in 3, 2, 1. I'm going to pass back to Cheryl.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
We'll have a little gift for you.
Thank you so much.
Yep. So we have a few items of business that we will bring to end the meeting. And those of you who are not on the board are welcome to hear the conversation, but we'll end the meeting officially. My last ending chime